Hello and welcome to another video on AV Forums. I'm Phil Hinton, the site editor, and today we're looking at the LG G4 OLED TV. This is a brand new 2024 OLED TV. Now this will work for most LG OLEDs from 2024, so you can use this with any of those OLED TVs. The settings should be the same because we're going to set all the TVs up the same way, and that's with Filmmaker Mode. One of the things that you will need is some way to send the TV an SDR signal, so just normal TV through a skybox or through the tuner or whatever. That's your basic SDR. Just play some material. You can even pause it like I have here, and we'll do those settings first. Then we're going to do HDR10. So that's any content that's HDR10, so you can find that on streaming services or from a 4K Blu-ray disc that has HDR. Now you have to be feeding the TV the HDR10 signal for you to be able to access the HDR10 menus to then make the changes that we're going to make here. So make sure that you are feeding the TV an HDR10 signal, and that's just basic normal HDR that you will find on a 4K UHD Blu-ray. The final thing that we're going to do is then do Dolby Vision, and again you'll need to feed the TV a Dolby Vision signal, and again you can do that through Disney Plus, other streaming services, or through a 4K UHD disc. Now the disc that I'm using here is the Spears & Munsell. It's the Benchmark UHD disc. You don't have to go out and buy that disc, but what that disc allows me to do is to switch between SDR, HDR10 and then Dolby Vision very easily, so I can make this video and show you. But you will need to feed the TV each signal, then go into the menu system to then be able to adjust it for that, whether it's SDR, HDR10 or Dolby Vision. So let's get started. This is an LG G4. Like I say, this will work on all LG TVs, OLED TVs in particular, for this year, that's 2024. But we are using the G4. It's brand new, fresh out the box. So if I long press the settings button on the remote control, and it will bring up the menu system for us here. And as you can see, out of the box, there's a few things that we need to change to get this into the best possible picture quality so you can watch content as it was mastered and intended to be seen. Now before we go into the actual picture settings, we need to go to the general menu, and we're going to do a few things here. One thing is we're going to switch off this tip bar because it becomes very annoying very quickly and does cover up some of the menu items when we get into the advanced settings and so on. So we're going to switch this off. We're also going to switch off auto power save, and we're also going to switch off the energy settings, because if I go into Filmmaker Mode now, so if I do that and go into Filmmaker Mode, which is the best mode for us, but what happens is if I then go into advanced settings and go to brightness, you'll notice that the pixel brightness for the OLED panel, so the actual brightness of the panel, is grayed out. Can't make any adjustments. It's under energy saving. So to get rid of this pesky little box here, because you can see it's covering up some of the menu items for us down here, and also fix this issue with energy saving, we're going to go to General. First of all, we're going to go into AI Service. We're going to go all the way down to AI Recommendation, and we're going to switch off Smart Tips and Smart Tips in Settings, and then all of a sudden this annoying box down here disappears. So that's the first thing that we want to do in General. The other thing is we're going to go all the way down once we get out into the General menu again. We're going all the way down here to Energy Saving. Click on that. We're going to go to Energy Saving Setup. We're going to go from Auto to Off, and then we're going to get a warning that it's going to use more energy consumption, but that's a good thing because we want the full picture quality. We paid the money for the TV, we want the full picture quality. So Filmmaker Mode is the mode that we're going to set here. So now that we've switched everything off in General menu, go to Picture menu, Filmmaker Mode, that's all you need to select really. You can go into Aspect Ratio, you can go there and select Original, and then you can go a little bit further down and just scan. And when it's on, you know that you're not getting any scaling to the image, you're actually getting pixel for pixel. You're not technically getting pixel for pixel because one of the mitigation technologies in the set is to move everything across by a pixel to stop image retention. But that's the best menu mode there for aspect ratio. Going into advanced settings, there's nothing we really need to change here. So the only thing you need to do in brightness here is that if you want 100 nits, If you take it down to 20, that then measures exactly 100 nits, or certainly that's the measurements that we've been getting there for that. So if that's what you want to do, you want to follow the standards. Otherwise, if you're in a bright room, you can adjust this and of course take it up to 80, which is the default. That does suit a brighter room, and there's nothing else that we really need to switch off in here. Everything else, because we're in filmmaker mode, should be set correctly. The only thing that you may want to adjust is the sharpness. Now at 10 there is no sharpness being applied, but if you want to really make sure that that is the case, you can take that down to 0. Again, it's not doing anything with the sharpness there whatsoever. The only other thing you may want to do, because this is an OLED set and because the pixel response is instantaneous, sometimes with low frame rate, 24 frames per second content, you will see judder. Now normally we'd say switch this off. Judder is part of 24 frames per second content, but because we're watching it on an OLED, sometimes some people do pick that up as quite severe judder. So if you do see judder, you can go down to cinematic movement. It is a new feature for this year. It adds a tiny little bit of interpolation, but not enough to add in any soap opera effect. Now, if you are used to low frame rate content like I am, you will notice that it is a little bit smoother. But if you do suffer from the judder that's inherent with OLED, that could be the solution for you. LG have worked on that this year. I think it's far better than it has been in previous years. We are using AI a little bit more with that, and it really does work. Or if you want to be a purist, you switch it off. And that's it. That's all we need to do to see content as we want to see it, as it was mastered and intended to be seen. And the only thing here is that if you're in a brighter room, you can obviously adjust the OLED pixel brightness up to 100%, and you could also go and adjust gamma. If you are in quite a bright room, if you take it down to 2.2, that should bring back some of the shadow detail that may be crushed out if you're watching in a brighter room with these settings. So that's it for SDR. I'm now going to quickly change the TV into HDR10, and we'll go through this process once again. So I'm now feeding the TV an HDR10 signal, and you can do that from a number of sources, but you need to be feeding the TV an HDR10 signal. If you don't know what an HDR10 signal is, then that's basically a basic HDR that's not hybrid log gamma from broadcast. So as long as you're on a streaming service like Amazon or Netflix or Disney, you may find that HDR10 is listed next to content. If that's the case, or you've got a 4K UHD Blu-ray that's not got Dolby Vision, it's just HDR, then it's HDR10. It uses the base layer. Play that content, and you need to play that content before you'll get to see this menu here. But once you're playing that content and we're in this menu, it's nice and easy, as we did with the SDR content. We want to go into filmmaker mode. We don't need to change anything else. Aspect ratio is already done. We don't need to go into general and redo the energy saving and all that. We've done it once. You only need to do it once you turn the TV on for the first time. Go in, make those changes. You never have to touch them again. So all we need to do is HDR select mode. We're going into filmmaker mode, and that is the correct setting for watching content as it was mastered and intended to be seen. Now, when you go into filmmaker mode on previous models from 2023 and before, if you went into advanced settings and go to brightness, you would have found that dynamic tone mapping was switched to on as default. That's not switched on anymore as default, it's switched off. So you're seeing the content as it was supposed to be seen. Now, what I'm doing here is I'm feeding this TV a 10,000 nit HDR10 signal. I'm doing that using the Spears and Mansell disc. There is a new setting in here that we're going to go through very briefly and explain it to you. The vast majority of you will not need to use it. If you're playing high nit level content, there's very little out there, but if you do have a 10,000 nit title or a 4,000 nit title, if you switch dynamic tone mapping on, it will tone map that content to this panel's capabilities and bring back some of that detail for you in the image. As you can see, if I switch it off, it all clips out again. Switch it on, dynamic tone mapping does bring that back, but again, it's not to the artist's intention there, or the creator's intention there. What we do have though is we have a new professional mode in the menu system, and what this does is it basically adjusts the roll off of the HDR tone mapping. So when you look at the HDR curve, because this TV doesn't go at 10,000 nits, it has to do some kind of tone mapping. As you can see here, you can still see some of the detail here, but it's clipping up a lot of detail in the grass in this area down here by the horse's feet. Now if you go into professional mode, what we can do is, if it's 1000 nit content, you can make adjustments, 4000 nit you can make adjustments, and 10,000 nits down the bottom here. Now if you go up the scale, you actually add more clipping, because what you're doing there is basically taking it back towards what the HDR curve should be, which means because this display can't display 10,000 nit content, it's just going to clip it out and you won't be able to see any of the detail of the hills here or any of the detail in the grass. But the beauty of this system here is, for professional users, they can set the monitor the way they want, and for you as a consumer, if you have 10,000 nit content and you don't want to use the dynamic tone mapping, you could go in here and just make adjustments. And as we adjust this down, as you can see, we're adjusting the way that the roll-off happens. We're reducing some of the brightness, the APL brightness of this scene, but we're also bringing back, hopefully you can see this on camera, we're actually bringing back a lot of the detail, and a lot of the detail around about the grass and so on. So it's a nice little option. I believe the default's 40 here, so that's what the TV will do to clip 10,000 nit content, to make sure that you get the brightness and some of the HDR details, but you will lose some detail in the higher areas. You can play with this tool and bring that back if that's what you want to do. For professional users, it has other uses in terms of if they're watching or mastering content or watching it on this as a client monitor, then they can make adjustments to make sure that that client is then seeing their content as it should be. But again, if you want the TV just to do it for you, switch it on in terms of dynamic tone mapping, and with high nit content it will bring it back. Where you don't want to use dynamic tone mapping is with 1000 nit content, because this TV is well capable of covering 1000 nits. So let the TV handle that. You don't need to do dynamic tone mapping, and that's why it's off by default. So just a couple of new settings in there for 2024. Dynamic tone mapping now switched to off. But if you're watching something like Pan that is 4000 nits and so on, you could switch that on just to retrieve some of that detail in the brighter highlights, but you will very slightly affect the APL of the scene as well. So there you go. We're now going to move over to Dolby Vision and do those settings for you. So once again, I'm using the Spears & Mansell disc. I'm now sending 10,000 nit Dolby Vision signal to the TV. You can find Dolby Vision on streaming services like Disney+, Netflix, so on. Just find some content, start playing it, then long press the settings key to get into the menu system that we have here. And you should see that by default, it goes to Dolby Vision Select Mode, Cinema Home. We want to change that. We don't need to go into General and change any of the energy saving or whatever. We've done all that, and aspect ratio. So the only thing we need to do here is the Select Mode. Now, what is new for 2024 is that Filmmaker Mode is now available under Dolby Vision. So basically all that does is it makes sure that everything is switched off that we don't need in terms of image processing, noise reduction and so on. So we select Filmmaker Mode. We know that the signal is now pure and it's now being played in Dolby Vision with no processing being added at all. Cinema Home, there is image processing being applied to that, including the light sensor. So this is basically the Dolby Vision IQ mode. We don't want that for what we want to do. Now, if you do want to use the image sensor, now say that you do have a bright room and then sometimes switch a light off and so on, you could use Cinema Home, but what you want to do then is that in Cinema Home, you're going to have to go through the menu system here. And one of the couple of the things that you're going to have to change is you're going to have to go down to True Motion. It's set automatically to cinematic movement. That's not too bad an option for the majority of viewers, but if you want to be a purist, you would switch that off. There's a couple of other things, as you can see here, so smooth gradation, MPEG noise reduction, so on. These are all switched on to low, and sharpness is now 20, so it is applying some sharpening. So again, if you want to use the Dolby Vision IQ, but you want to get rid of all these, you're going to have to go through those and switch all of those off. The easy way, as I showed you straight away, right at the start, is to select Filmmaker Mode, everything's switched off. It's still nice and bright. So Filmmaker Mode is the best mode. It's new for 2024. The Filmmaker Mode is now available with Dolby Vision. Philips are also doing that on their TVs for 2023, 2024. So yeah, new from LG. So this is the LG G4 that we've been doing the adjustments on here, but these menu systems and what I've shown you here is exactly the same for the C4, for the B4, and also some of last year's models. A lot of these settings here, apart from Dolby Vision, will be exactly the same. So hopefully you found this video useful. If you have, then please give it a like. If you want to see more of these videos, as well as our reviews, our settings, launch events and all that kind of thing, then do consider subscribing to the channel. I'm Phil Hinton, thank you very much for watching, and we'll see you in the next one. Goodbye.